We're back with you tonight here on In Focus. A study by a Home Affairs Review panel revealed last week that the department issued 45,000 fraudulent visas in the period between 2014 and 2021. The panel further expressed concern that the number could be even higher as its findings were only provisional. The review panel's chairperson, former Director General in the Presidency, Cassius Lubisi, called the findings an onslaught. Home Affairs Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi joins us now to explain a little bit further what the department plans to do about the latest revelations. Minister, good evening and thank you very much for your time. So the story is, of course, you were presented with the documents of Shepherd Bushiri, and they said, look, this man was able to get permanent residency in a fraudulent way. Not only him, but there was another fellow in prison somewhere in PE, and you thought, well, if these guys can get it, how many other people are possibly going to be able to get this, right? And you put a panel together, you say, guys, investigate what is going on here. Further than that, you appointed DTG to look at permits, and then after you appointed DTG, 14 officials come to you and they march, and they complain, they say, no, this person must not investigate us because we've got errors here, and these errors are going to be a problem. And you're saying, well, if errors are there, how many people have got permits by error here in South Africa, visas or whatever kind? And that's where we are. And now you've got this report. What does it tell you, firstly, about this question of errors? How rife is this thing of errors and people being given fraudulent documents?
Yes, good evening, Thabo, and good evening to the listeners and the viewers out there. Indeed, you are right. That's the sequence of events. It started with Bushiri when he discovered that the documents he's having are irregular or fraudulent. And then I heard that the gentleman called Omotoso, who is being charged for rape in the Eastern Cape, allegedly for rape.
Yes.
Somebody tipped me that these documents are also not in order. While I'm still mulling this, we have just hired a DTG anti-corruption.
Yeah.
And she had hit the ground running. We were charging people, investigating them. Then we received this petition from 14 people. Remember, these are the people who allow you, people from other countries to come into South Africa via various visas and permits.
Yeah.
They are the ones who are in charge of anybody coming in here legally. And they are saying, look, this anti-corruption unit must stop investigating our errors. I mean, here is somebody telling you that I'm committing an error, but don't investigate it.
Yeah.
That in itself is scary. In other words, it tells you, because they are issuing permanent residence, naturalization, citizenship by naturalization, it means some people are here by an error.
Yeah.
That's what it means.
Yeah.
They issue corporate permits, they issue study permits, they issue scarce skill permits.
Right.
It means people are getting them by error, by their own account.
Right.
These are the officials who are saying, look, we are committing these errors, but don't dare investigate them.
Yeah.
So that in itself was disturbing. But the second thing was, are these really errors?
Right.
Can somebody stand up really and say, I'm committing an error? The conclusion I got is that these are not errors. But they believe when you use the word error, it's more acceptable.
That's right.
Yes, it's more acceptable. Just like in some municipalities, when they don't want the Auditor General to catch them, they don't present documents and it becomes a disclaimer.
Okay.
They believe a disclaimer is better than corruption.
Sure.
Because nobody can prove that they were corrupt.
Right.
But no, it's just that there was no documentation. It's a disclaimer, then we must tolerate it. So they wanted us to tolerate that. Look, these are just errors, you know.
Yeah.
So that's what disturbed me, and I said, no, we need to review this.
Sure. From
the time the Immigration Act came into operation until now, all the visas and permits we use must be reviewed.
So, something that really raised my eyebrows was hearing then from the former DG in the presidency, Cassius Lubisi's presentation, that there is a system that was being used by those who were trying to steal information to bug the computers of the officials. So they would put some kind of a Bluetooth USB, and that is able to capture the data of those who would log in, and therefore they would then be able to log in with those credentials elsewhere, which would probably explain why we were seeing some makeshift offices with computers and passports and Home Affairs software being used in back offices somewhere in the CBDs, and even I think there's one that you've discovered at Park Station the other day. And how are you navigating around that particular challenge?
Indeed, remember this investigation, the review was started from 2004, but unfortunately they found that from 2004, I mean to say, the documents are manual. They were only digitized from 2014.
Okay.
So the investigation started earnestly from 2014. The information they were dishing out is from 2014. But even then, Home Affairs realized that getting into our systems using a password is problematic because of what you have just said.
Yeah.
Passwords being stolen, but also officials just claiming that on the day the password was used, I was not even at work. And sometimes they produce a medical certificate. You can't go to that doctor and dig whether this person was really sick or not. So Home Affairs changed from using passwords. We use a system called BACAM, biometric access control movement. In other words, before you get into the system, to do some things, you've got to put a fingerprint.
Okay.
Before we give you a death certificate or a marriage certificate or a birth certificate, we've got to get into the National Population Register.
Yeah.
So you use the fingerprint. You can't come and claim that your fingerprint has been stolen. It was to deal with exactly what Dr. Lubisi and the team found out, that passwords are being stolen. Yeah. And obviously you don't steal a password for nothing.
Right.
You want to go and use it to manufacture false documents, obviously.
Yes. Now, there are a number of systems that you told me about, but one particular one, which is a little bit archaic, and that is becoming obviously a problem, one that they picked up at the panel, is the track and trace. It's quite some old technology, and there are still offices of the Department of Home Affairs that are using this particular system, and it's been flagged as being one of the issues that are quite problematic. How are you dealing with that legacy issue?
It's not offices. It's the people dealing with permitting.
Yeah,
that's permitting. Track and trace is in permitting. Yes, it's good that we discover that's being used, because there's a new system called VAS, Visa Adjudication System, which they are supposed to be using, but it leaves a trail of information. Yeah. Track and trace doesn't.
Right.
Now it becomes very fun if a person chooses to use an archaic system that leaves no trail, and a new system that works very well, but there's a trail is being avoided.
So what's the issue? I say maybe you've just not trained us in this thing?
No. It's very clear. It's very clear. The intention here was that whatever I've done must not be traced. Means these were deliberate people. That's why the panel concluded that what they found are not errors, as the petition was claiming.
Yeah.
These are not errors. They are deliberate actions,
right,
to avoid being caught.
Yeah.
And you don't avoid being caught if you are not doing wrong things.
Right.
Avoid being caught. Don't use a system that is modern, that will be traceable. Use an old one, and you can come and claim what you are saying, Tim. And you can come and claim and say, no, this new thing, I've been working here for ages. I'm used to this old one, not the new one.
Yeah.
That clearly doesn't fetch water.
Yeah.
It's clear that they were using it.
What are you doing with CETA? When you've had some contract challenges with CETA, because they should necessarily be assisting you there to wipe that thing out and put new systems in place.
Yeah, well, but remember, CETA is the State Information Technology Agency, which by law we get our technology from them. We've had lots of problems. I mean, like downtime, Home Affairs system being down all the time.
Yeah.
This year they promised us that they are spending 400 million rand to redo their network, but they are also spending another billion rand on overall system refresh, not only for Home Affairs, but for the whole government. And we are hopeful. They told us that this redoing their network will be finalized by September, which is in 2 months' time. I'm eagerly waiting, because once you get it wrong in technology, especially in Home Affairs, you finish. Remember, Home Affairs is the only department in the whole government which, when systems are down, when the network is down, then we close everything. You can't work. What I'm trying to say is that if you are at school, you can go on teaching kids even when systems are down. Even in hospitals, I've worked there before. You don't stop treating patients because systems are down. Even in police stations.
So those systems are still able to work offline?
Yes, but there's nothing called offline in the Department of Home Affairs except issuing a manual death certificate. Death certificate we are able to issue them manually, but we come and change them later to computerize them immediately after the burial when the systems come back. But all the other systems, it can't be we can't give you a passport manually. Anyway, the ISHAO, International Civil Aviation Organization, won't even accept it in the first place. We can't give you an ID manually anymore because the smart card is quite advanced, if you understand what I mean. So Home Affairs depends on systems running continuously. Even the stealing of one cable or one copper wire can close the whole Home Affairs in an area, and you are in big trouble. So we are very vulnerable to failures in technology, more than any government department in the whole government.
Now, of course, the 15, you are just not letting them slide, I presume. There are some who are already suspended, some who are already being investigated for those errors?
Oh, yes. Remember, while this team was investigating, the anti-corruption unit was also investigating. In fact, one of the reasons why I put up this team, maybe a third reason I ought to add, I told you the issue of Bushiri and other priests. I told you the issue of the petition. But the other reason is the counter-corruption unit, which investigate the whole corruption in the Department of Home Affairs, told me that about 66% of what they are investigating is about permitting. Not about passports or ID or, it's about permits. It's about people who want to come into South Africa. They take 60% of their work. So it was something worth investigating to find out how. If it's 60% of all the corruption, how deep is it? What type of corruption? So yes, the anti-corruption unit kept on going on with what they were doing, even when Dr. Lubisi and his team were investigating. So some of the findings, they were already charging people. So some of the people identified in the Lubisi report, even before the report was read last week, was handed over, they were already being charged for some other issues. Because when you are corrupt, you don't just do one thing. You go all over wherever there's an opportunity. Because you want to make money. I mean, this is about greed. When you see an opportunity, you grab it. So you won't say, no, my corruption will only be on study visas. Even when you see opportunity on the other type of permits and visas, you'll do it. So 5 of them, yes, are already being charged.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the recommendations then of the task team on the digital platform, and but recommendations also maybe around policies and what needs to be changing there. We continue with Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, when we return. We're back tonight with the Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, following a special review panel that he put in place to look at the issuance of permits and visas and what the challenges were, following, of course, discoveries of errors and a number of permits being given to individuals fraudulent or irregularly, shall we use the word. Dr. Motsoaledi continues with that. So some of the recommendations based on this investigation task team have got to do with some of the legislation that you will need to change, and we'll talk about the technology in just a moment. But legislatively, what do you need to put in place right now to tighten our visa regime?
The example they are giving here, I can give 2, Thabo. In terms of the Immigration Act, if you are married to a South African, then you can apply for permanent residency and eventually for naturalization, just by virtue of marriage. Now, people do all sorts of things because of that part of the law. Firstly, you marry a South African, you get your documents, and you divorce immediately thereafter.
Yes.
Secondly, you marry in a fake way.
Yes.
A poor woman who does not even know that she's married. She discovers one day when she goes home affairs that she's married because her identity has been stolen in order to allow somebody the opportunity to get South African documents. But even more ominously, people are using cohabitation.
Yes.
And even notarial notes. You know, a notarial note, you go to a lawyer who signs a contract that no, you are cohabiting, you are staying together, you are life partners. But the team found that even some of the notarial notes that were presented were not even written by lawyers.
Oh.
They were self-created. Possibility being that some of the officials who were processing them were aware that no, this one is a self-created thing. But they were part of the collaboration, the conspiracy.
Right.
And so they are saying, let's tighten the legislation in that regard.
So are you saying then going forward you will no longer be recognizing these cohabitation agreements or
well, we have got to look into the Act because the courts accept notarial contracts because the Act doesn't say anything about them. Yes. The second issue is that they found the young people who applied for retired person's visa. Very young people. Now the Act is silent about at what time do you apply for retirement. In South Africa, retirement age is 60 or 65 years, depending on which one you take. And when you ask an official, but this person is here, and they said no, but there's no Act or there's no law that controls or defines at what age must a person apply for retirement. Of course, it's deliberate. It's deliberate, but the problem is it will be difficult to charge them because they will simply say, no, but under what law are you charging me? So you have got to tighten and make it clear in the Act that for a person to apply for retirement visa, there must be at this particular age. Thirdly, after applying for that retirement visa, people come into the country and start applying for a different type of a visa. You know, in the report they call it forum shopping. Where a person comes in a visitor's visa. You can't deny somebody to visit your country. You definitely can't. Countries don't do that. So when a person says, I'm just visiting, you allow them. They are coming here maybe to see our oceans, to see Table Mountain, to visit our game reserves and all that. You allow them. But all of a sudden a person discovers, now man, I can apply for asylum. They suddenly jump in and say I'm an asylum seeker, meaning I've run away. From an asylum seeker is a person who's running away.
But you came in as a visitor now.
Yes, you came as a visitor. Now all of a sudden you tell us I'm running away. You remember that lady from Lithuania? Yes, who was coming to a party actually. But ended up applying for an asylum, becoming an asylum seeker, and she quoted the war in Ukraine. I mean, she came here knowing that there's war in Ukraine. She came with people who were going to a party. And indeed, she did attend a party, definitely. And after that party, she wanted to go back home. But then she concocted the story that, no, the media reported widely about her. Her cover has been blown. And so she can no longer apply for asylum because she's not safe. How do you attend such a high-powered, visible party if you didn't want to be known? So those are some of the excesses and abuses that we are experiencing. And all they're saying is that please tighten the legislation so that these abuses are minimized.
Technology-wise, information verification and people using various databases as opposed to hide this information. So how would you see this working? Because you've got to connect with DTI, I suppose. You've got to connect with the banks. You've got to connect with all these systems so that you're able to find out all this information from various people.
One of the biggest things we want to do in technology, Thabo, is that at the present moment, as I'm sitting here, we are using a system called Harness, which stores biometrics of all South Africans. Any South African who took a ever got a birth certificate or an ID or a passport or got married or passed away and a death certificate was written will appear on the National Population Register.
Right.
Now the biometrics stored on our population register is through a system called HANIS, Home Affairs National Identification System. Now we believe in this modern advancing technology. You can no longer use only 2 biometrics like we are doing in HANIS. We only have a fingerprint and a photo. And you have seen photo swabs being done to an extent where we got people like Leburang of Bangladesh and all that. Now we want to bring that to an end so that we don't keep on rushing after investigation after the fact. We just make it not possible to happen. So we are moving away from HANIS to a new system called ABIS, Automated Biometric Information System, which has got 5 biometrics. Apart from a fingerprint and your photo, it will have iris recognition.
Okay.
We can recognize that this is Thabo Mdluli in the
eye.
iris in your eye, or photo recognition. You can recognize that this photo belongs to Thabo Mdluli, not Aaron Motsoaledi.
Right.
And you match it with the fingerprint.
Voice recognition is also on the cards?
We have not yet arrived there. It's going to be 5 biometrics. It's going to be iris recognition, facial recognition, your fingerprint, your photo, and a palm print. For kids, we also want to think about a heel print of their heels. But we also, there's another legislation different from this, which is already far advanced. We want young kids to start taking their IDs at 10 years. Yes, because we want their biometrics. Quite a number of criminals, when police go to the scene of a crime and they take fingerprints, they find fingerprints of kids there. You send kids to commit that crime because you know that they are not in the fingerprint database of the country. Because, yes, they've not yet taken an ID. Remember, an ID is at 16 years. 16 years, That's the first time we start getting your biometrics. So we want to start as early as 10 years.
Okay.
Yes, but if we do so also, we'll also reduce incidents of fraud when you grow up. When you have had your identification when you are 10, it's going to be very difficult to change later and do fraudulent things.
And when then do you see the finishing of the integration into VAS, or is it again
into ABIS?
Is it no? What is it called now? The new visa system that is used for application. VAS, the visa adjudication system.
No, it's just to tell people that from now onwards, no more track and trace.
Okay.
We can just write a circular and say it's banned. You have to use visa adjudication system. And anybody who uses TNT will have broken the law. So we can just do something like that. Because it's not understandable why people used to use an archaic system when there's a new one. That's working very well. Except to conclude that they are running away from accountability.
Yeah. Yes. Listening to your opening remarks in your presentation, it seems there's I suppose there's a feeling that you and the courts are not seeing eye to eye, or maybe sometimes your decisions are overturned when they go to the courts. How are you cleaning that up?
Yeah, no, that's true. And I don't want to blame the courts per se. 2 issues. Quite a number of officials were always in conflict with the law. They were not following the laws of the country, even where the laws are written down. They were trying to avoid them. I don't understand why. Maybe it's because, obviously, if you follow the law, the chance of doing maladministration are diminished. Yeah, so, but in other instances, it's the manner in which the legislation is. That's why I agree with the team that we must review the legislation. Judges can only make judgment on the basis of what is on the statutes, what is in the legislation. If it's wrong, then you are going to have all the wrong things happening. So it's not that we and the courts are fighting. It's only because the way the legislation is and the fact that even where the legislation is clear, a lot of officials were not
following the laws.
Following the laws. Right. Take for instance, on the issue of a spousal visa, there's a judgment in court where the judge put spousal under inverted commas. And I was surprised. When I went back to the act, I found that actually the thing called the spousal visa doesn't exist. It's a visitor's visa, a relative's visa. But somehow they turn it. For instance, a spousal visa is about you meeting a woman who is not from South Africa. You meet her out of the country. Or a woman meeting a man who is not from South Africa. And then applying for them via that relative's visa or spousal visa to come into the country. But what I found is officials were using it for something else. You come in from another country, maybe on a study visa, and they grant you a study visa. Then you apply for your girlfriend as a spouse to come into South Africa. The act is very clear. It's not like that. Okay. But I found that this was being done. Right. And there are lots of people who are here via spousal visas in terms of an act that does not exist.
Lots still to be done then, Minister. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming in and for clearing some of these issues for us. That is Minister at Home Affairs, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi.